Okay, I'm back. Swizzle had to go pee and poop outside, which I always prefer it outside as compared to inside. So hopefully I got everything zoomed in and ready to resume here. Thanks for understanding that delay. Again, this tab here is the Btc Projection Tab, and what I've gone ahead and done here is I've put a minimum, medium, and maximum supply of Bitcoin. The minimum is today's amount of Bitcoin, which is about 19 million Bitcoin, minus the 4 million of lost Bitcoin, which is estimated. You can go ahead and visit the website here. It's a pretty long address, but it's from the bitcoinist.com. The medium projection is using the amount of circulating supply of Bitcoin today, and the maximum is the maximum amount of Bitcoin, which is 21 million, which again I think is an actual, that's an ultra conservative assumption in this model, because nobody will ever have 21 million Bitcoin in circulation, because there will be a certain amount of Bitcoin which is lost, whether it's from Satoshi's wallet, where that million plus Bitcoin has never moved, or people who have just lost their wallet. You've heard those horror stories of people back in the day when Bitcoin was worth less than a penny, is they had thousands of Bitcoin stored on hard drives, and then those hard drives got thrown away. And like one of them, I believe, is in a landfill in the United Kingdom, and the guy's trying to get access to the landfill to try to recover that hard drive, and until the government allows him to search through the landfill, you know, those Bitcoin are lost forever. And because of how many cases there are in the world like that, I think 4 million lost Bitcoin is a reasonable estimate, especially if you read this article right here. But anyway, if you want to go ahead and download the updated spreadsheet, go to UNM.nu and Bronco.tv. Be sure to scroll down here past all my videos, past my golf spreadsheet, past the PowerPoint, past my 30-day sober video. Go ahead and click on the XLS file, which is now an XLSX file, which is a little bit more powerful than XLS, plus it saves hard drive space. It should have today's date, which is February 20th, 2022. Go ahead and download that, and you'll be able to check out the spreadsheet here. If you're new to my spreadsheet, I always have the portfolio tab where you can enter your own coins. I put my coins in here because I like to keep track of it for myself, but you can customize this for yourself. You can have like portfolio target percentage based on target prices I have, which would be located right here in column G. You can compare two different dates and see the price changes for those dates in terms of actual dollar amount changes and percentage changes. You get your recap day tab, which has percentage changes daily for each of the coins I have, and then a nice little graph over here to the side so you can compare daily percent changes for each coin. It's kind of jumbled when you use all the coins at once, but you can filter this out to individual coins you want to review. I just updated prices for the day, which changes these three tabs here daily. I've got the projection tab, which gives you a projection of price targets you're looking at for various increments in time, going up to the next Bitcoin halving, which is projected to be March 28th, 2024, which is about 767 days from now. This new tab, which I'm going to cover in detail in this video, you've got your weekly changes over here. And then if you're having trouble getting the spreadsheet to work, try messing around with the config tab, which may help the spreadsheet work in different platforms such as Microsoft Excel, OpenOffice, or other spreadsheet programs. But getting to the BTC projection tab, I've already covered the Btc supply line, lost BTC, current circulating BTC, which gives it a current market cap of about $426 billion, which is based on the current supply and today's price, which is about, I think it's 38,000. It's, where is it? Right here, $38,304. Okay, so getting to the rest of this tab, there's a lot going on here, and the one disclaimer I have to make with this tab is this is a pretty basic model. When trying to explain why I think the price of Bitcoin is so undervalued today, and how I think Bitcoin can reach my target price of $300,000 in the near future, $1 million over the next 3, 5 to 10 years, millions of dollars, I believe, over the next 10, 20, however many years. You know, those prices may seem ridiculous if you look at this bottom table right down here. I'm talking about anything ranging from 7.5x growth to about 100x growth for Bitcoin, which, especially for people who just invest in stocks, bonds, or more conservative investments, is saying something is going to increase 10,000 or more percent is almost like a comic book number. Is, you know, in the stock market, I think you're expecting about 10, 12% growth annually. So when you start talking about 100% growth annually or a 10,000% growth over the next 10 years, it gets a little bit ridiculous. And so when you start talking to them, you start sounding like a snake oil salesman, that you're just trying to pitch some sort of scam to people. But there's real numbers behind this. I am kind of doing some of this on the fly, some of the stuff I had prepared, but I know Kathy Wood from ARK Investment came out with an article recently about why they think Bitcoin should hit $1.3 million by the year 2030. I wonder how you can find this. Now let's see what comes up. I'm doing this real time with you guys. This should be interesting. It's going to accept cookies. Probably not a great idea, but I know they came out with an article which this confirms by the year 2030 they expect a Bitcoin price of 1.3 million, which ARK is a pretty respectable investment. Kathy Wood is a respectable investor. So if you believe in that, you don't even have to listen to the rest of what I have to say. Is you can just take their word and run with it. But it has a lot to do with remittance network, 50% of market share going to Bitcoin, emerging market currency, digital gold, so essentially 50% of the gold market going into Bitcoin. And based on these I shouldn't say random, but based on these assumptions of different segments of the economy, of different commodities and investments going to Bitcoin, as it's an emerging technology, that's how they come up with the price of 1.3 million per Bitcoin. Still not sure how you access their actual spreadsheet presentation, which is something I would like to look at. Big Ideas report. Maybe this is it. I'm not going to waste too much time here. Maybe if you go ahead and dig into this in greater detail, you can get more evidence as to how they're supporting a $1.3 million Bitcoin price by 2030. But if you look at my prices encompass that 1.3 million. Is I'm having a minimum Bitcoin price of just under $300,000 based on this sell right here, all the way up to almost $4 million Bitcoin right here based on various assumptions I make in my models. So I think my model is somewhat reasonable based on ARK doing a lot of research in detail supported by solid numbers you can check out. And I'll go ahead and try to look for a link to their actual presentation and do a future video on that to help hopefully support my own model. But anyway, my model's simplified in that I'm mostly looking at the number of millionaires in the world, which is estimated at 56.1 million millionaires in the world. You can view that information on this article right here. How many millionaires are there in the world? Here's 26 Millionaire Statistics. This article came out early 2022. And the number I'm using is this right here. There are 56.1 million millionaires worldwide at the moment. Whether you believe that number or not, it seems to be supported by many sources, so I'm going to run with it and say it's valid. How do they define what a millionaire is? For someone to become a millionaire, they need to have a net worth of at least $1 million. Net worth is considered to be all that a person owns minus what they owe. If the remaining amount is at or over $1 million, that person will be qualified as a millionaire. So another assumption of my model is that not only do I have these 56 million millionaires, but that they want to invest $1 million into Bitcoin. Now, in reality, a lot of these millionaires don't have $1 million worth of cash or just liquid investments ready to put into Bitcoin. A lot of it may be tied into real estate or businesses they run or other things which are less liquid, which they're not willing to put into Bitcoin. However, the reason I think $1 million per millionaire is a reasonable assumption is that a lot of these millionaires might be actually billionaires or multimillionaires with the ability to invest even more than $1 million. Like if you're a billionaire and all you're buying is $1 million worth of Bitcoin, that's 0.1% of your net worth, which I believe everybody should put at least 1% of their net worth into Bitcoin. So if you're a billionaire, you should buy at least $10 million worth of Bitcoin to reach that 1% threshold. But anyway, so based on the fact that, you know, I'm putting $1 million per millionaire in the world, it's based on the assumption that, sure, not every millionaire has $1 million to put into Bitcoin, But on average, because there are billionaires in the world and people who are multimillionaires who can invest more than $1 million, and yet there are millionaires who would invest less than $1 million, the average in the aggregate would be $1 million per millionaire in the world, which I think is a reasonable assumption. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comments section. I'd be curious to think if my assumptions are unreasonable or realistic with this model. Moving on, this is the target price that you or somebody else using the spreadsheet might want to achieve. I think in general in the United States, people want to strive to be millionaires. Again, financial planning should be individualized to every single individual in the world. And so, especially if you're living outside of the United States or you just don't have the financial means to become a millionaire, maybe for you, if you're worth $100,000, you have enough to retire, or it would drastically change your life and improve your quality of life. In that case, you can change your target to $100,000, and that'll change the assumptions throughout this model. But let's go and put it back at $1 million right here. Make sure this is working. Again, this spreadsheet is a work in progress, so if things aren't working correctly, I might need to change things. But sure enough, it's changing this target investment line right here. I think everything else is staying the same, but this ought to help you modify your target investment goals based on your own individual needs. So like if you have $10,000 as a target, you should be looking to invest about $1,200, which comes out to $23 weekly, which if you're living in America, I think investing $23 into Bitcoin weekly is a very reasonable goal. So if your goal is to get $10,000 through investing in Bitcoin, you can take a look at this line right here and come up with your own tailored financial targets, which might help you reach your Bitcoin goals. Having Bitcoin goals has helped me reach the amount of Bitcoin I have, just because it keeps me focused, keeps me buying on a regular basis, such as every paycheck. And so if this guys helps you out, that's why I created the spreadsheet. It's for myself, but also to help you guys out reach your goals and hopefully reach financial freedom, life-changing wealth, all that good stuff I keep talking about on this channel. So anyway, taking a look at this next line, total market cap. So based on the minimum, medium, and maximum assumptions, I'm saying a minimum market cap of $6 trillion, which is half that's half the market cap of gold right now. If you go ahead and click this link right here, it'll take you to where I came up with this $12 trillion market cap of gold, and it comes from this website here, which again is supported by other websites. So I'm going to go ahead and run with this value, that gold's market cap is at $12 trillion right now. So the minimum assumption is that Bitcoin reaches half the market cap of gold. The medium assumption is that Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold. And the maximum assumption is that these 56 million millionaires put $1 million into the market, which causes the market cap of gold to reach $56 trillion, encompassing the current market cap of almost $1 trillion right now, which is what you'll see the difference between these two cells right here, the 55 trillion and the 56 trillion. So this first table right here, what this is trying to represent is the amount of Bitcoin that each person interested in buying Bitcoin, which in this case I'm focusing on millionaires, which is another assumption of the model, which you want to keep into consideration, is I'm pretty much looking at just millionaires in the world and their interest in Bitcoin, which again may be not conservative, it might be too liberal, but at the same time, I think it's countered by a conservative assumption not encompassed by the model. So let me go ahead and try to explain that in greater detail. Try to get my thoughts here. I'm just kind of brainstorming this. So one thing I sometimes need to do in life is slow down. That way my thoughts make sense on my YouTube videos. So let me go ahead and try to walk through this slowly and carefully. Okay, taking a look at the model. We're going with the 56 million millionaires in the world, supported by the article I showed you earlier. The three different models, max, medium, and min, are based on 21.5% of those millionaires putting $1 million into Bitcoin, which is the median model right here. And this 10.75% is the minimum conservative estimate of 56 millionaires putting $1 million into Bitcoin. Only 10.75% of those people are doing so. So that's where you're coming up with the minimum, medium, and maximum projections. Now, whether 10% of millionaires put $1 million into Bitcoin, you might say that's not conservative, that's way too liberal, that's unrealistic. Where I would counter argue that is that my model is only looking at millionaires. What about countries throughout the world, such as El Salvador? They're not encompassed by their model. They're not considered millionaires. They're not an individual. So what about them buying Bitcoin? That's only increasing the demand of Bitcoin, which is not encompassed by that model, which actually makes my model more conservative. What about corporations, of which there are many of them? The most popular one is probably MicroStrategy. But what about them who are interested in buying Bitcoin? They're putting additional demand pressure, which is going to increase the price more than encompassed in my model. So that's where coming up with these assumptions, you might say my assumptions are too aggressive, but I'll counter that with these arguments that I'm not encompassing other entities who are going to put increased demand pressure onto Bitcoin, which again I think strengthens the case made by my model. But anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and go over that. In case you're a skeptic of my model, I want to go ahead and defend it. So taking a look at this table right here, here we're talking about the total supply of Bitcoin, the minimum, medium, and max projections as encompassed right there. Here we have the medium and max, min, medium, and max projections as encompassed by total market cap right here. And based on these assumptions, I'm saying that every person interested in investing in Bitcoin, which comes out to this 56 million here, 12 million here, and 6 million here, based on them wanting to invest $1 million into Bitcoin, the minimum assumption is that, let's see if I can word this right, essentially every person interested in Bitcoin could only own 0.2667 or about 0.27 Bitcoin per person, which shows how scarce Bitcoin is. Now again, that's based on the maximum market cap of $56 trillion and the minimum supply of Bitcoin, which is about 15 million Bitcoin circulating in the world. And again, that's based on 4 million Bitcoin lost from today's circulating supply of about 19 million. So, based on this assumption, if all of these people were interested in buying Bitcoin and based on the scarce supply of Bitcoin, each person could only buy 0.27 Bitcoin. So if you're one of those persons interested in Bitcoin and you're wondering, well, I can't get to one whole Bitcoin, maybe it's not even worth it for me to invest in Bitcoin because I'm never going to reach my goal of 1 Bitcoin. Well, that's okay, because guess what? If you get to 0.27 Bitcoin, you're as good as all of these other people interested in investing in Bitcoin, and I think you have a reasonable case to become a millionaire based on the price of Bitcoin hitting $3.7 million based on this huge amount of demand in the market and limited supply. Now, throughout the rest of the table, I sort of come up with less aggressive procedures in terms of estimating the amount of Bitcoin per person. So as we increase the supply of Bitcoin going to the right here, the amount of Bitcoin per person increases. Makes sense, increase the supply, you can have increased amount of Bitcoin per person. Likewise, as you decrease the market cap of Bitcoin, which essentially is that fewer people are interested in buying Bitcoin, each person can own more Bitcoin. So that's how we go from this 0.27 Bitcoin to each person owning 3.5 Bitcoin per person. And again, that's based on, I would say, the least amount of demand and most amount of supply. That's assuming there can actually be 21 million Bitcoin in the world and only 6 million people are interested in investing $1 million into Bitcoin. Each person could have 3.5 Bitcoin. So that's what this table is trying to encompass right here. And I think I bolded this number right here because it relates to about 19 million Bitcoin circulating, which I think is a good long-term projection, because even as we get to the 21 million cap, which is programmed into Bitcoin's blockchain and processing and everything, is that's going to be countered by the lost Bitcoin. So even as we approach 21 million Bitcoin in the world, if we offset that by the amount of lost Bitcoin, even if we assume it's less than $4 million, I think assuming there will ever be 19 million Bitcoin circulating in the world is a reasonable assumption, which leads me to this column being a very realistic long-term projection. And then the reason I bolded this max number is because I think, again, assuming that 56 million entities want to invest $1 million, which again, if you're saying I'm too aggressive by saying 56 million millionaires want to put $1 million in, what about all the countries and institutions and other entities in the world who want to invest? I think that makes this model very realistic, that we could hit a $56 trillion market cap in time within the next 10 years. That makes this 0.33, 0.34 Bitcoin goal very realistic as a target to become a millionaire at some point in time. So hopefully that helps you guys. If you're thinking, well, it's going to be hard for me to get to one whole Bitcoin, well, guess what? If you can get to 0.34 Bitcoin, I'd say you're in excellent shape to reach your target of $1 million. Okay, and again, if you're trying to get to $100,000, that's not really encompassed by this changing right here. This would just change your target investment right here. If you're trying to get to $100,000, try to invest $12,000, which would relate to this 8.3x growth right here, which I think is way more conservative than 100x growth of Bitcoin right here. If you're just looking at 8.3x growth of Bitcoin, if you can put $12,000 into the market, which translates to about $230 weekly, I think reaching $100,000 worth of Bitcoin in a relatively short amount of time is very realistic. And again, I'll keep updating the spreadsheet as you guys come up with recommendations, and as I feel to change the need, as I feel the need to change this tab, you might see changes yourself. But I'll also take your comments into consideration. So you'll be seeing changes on this tab, I'm sure, especially as I work on it tonight. But as of right now, this is the way the spreadsheet works. I don't want this video to keep dragging on. It's already 20 minutes long. So taking a look at this table right here. Again, this price relates to this amount up here. So if you assume that each person owns about 3.5 Bitcoin, that translates to a price of Bitcoin just under $300,000. If you assume each person can only own 0.27 Bitcoin, it's based on this huge demand of essentially a $56 trillion market cap. That would reach a price of Bitcoin of just under $4 million, which the other thing I did want to talk about is I also understand that the price of Bitcoin is not solely determined by the amount of Bitcoin invested. That's why you have realized market cap and unrealized market cap. So just because you have 56 million millionaires putting in $1 million into the market doesn't mean the price of Bitcoin is going to hit $4 million. In fact, I believe it would be way higher than that just because of the way markets work and the way that unrealized market cap works in relation to realized market cap. And it has to do with the fact that even if you look at today's market cap of $726 billion, if every single person wanted to sell all of their Bitcoin, they're not going to get in aggregate $726 billion because as people sell, the price of Bitcoin is going to decrease, which is going to decrease market cap. So the realized market cap would be way lower than $726 billion. And that also works in the opposite direction, that as demand increases over time, the unrealized market cap of Bitcoin is going to increase way more than the realized market cap of Bitcoin. So the amount of trying to simplify this, because I sometimes get wordy and I don't know if you guys understand me, but the amount of money that people put into the market is going to cause the price of Bitcoin to increase exponentially more than the amount of money they put in. So putting in a certain amount of money is not going to cause the price of Bitcoin to increase linearly based on the amount of money put in. It's going to increase way more than the amount they put in based on the way of demand and supply economics and unrealized and realized market cap. So I don't want to drag that point on, but I also want to let you guys know I realize that assumption of my model. So what that means is essentially my prices are conservative, I believe, because I'm assuming that this amount of money flowing into the market is going to cause these amount of price changes. But in reality, these price changes should be exponentially higher based on unrealized market cap versus realized market cap. So I just wanted to let you know I believe that strengthens my model even further. So again, go and check this out. This final table right here talks about X growth. So if you're looking at the minimum growth of Bitcoin, you're looking at 7.5x or about 650% growth. If you're looking at the most optimistic projection, we're looking at about 100x growth or 10,000% growth. And so I'm going to stop the video here because we're heading toward 25 minutes, and I think that's long enough for this video, but I wanted to give you a walkthrough of this new tab because I think it can be powerful. Hopefully it helps you guys reach your Bitcoin goals. You know, based on your own financial situations and your goals in life, I hope you're more excited to invest in Bitcoin now than ever, because it can be very daunting looking at the price of Bitcoin and saying, man, I don't have $38,000 to put into Bitcoin, so I'm never going to get to 1 Bitcoin. But guess what? You don't have to get to 1 Bitcoin. You can get to these other goals and be totally happy in life and be in a much better financial situation and even achieve life-changing wealth. Now, if you can get to higher Bitcoin levels, obviously that'll accelerate your time horizon, allow you to retire quicker, have more wealth long-term, those sort of things. But you know, hopefully this helps motivate you and realize how limited the supply of Bitcoin is, how much potential demand can flow into the market, and how high the price of Bitcoin can go according to my model. So I hope you have enjoyed this walkthrough. If you have, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Little Swizzle's happy now that she peed and pooped and, you know, getting ready to start her day, and she's pretty excited about hearing all this news about Bitcoin. I hope you are too. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday. I'll come out with my day 229 video either later today or tomorrow morning. Again, it's the weekend, so we'll see. And this was a pretty intense video, but I hope you got a lot out of it. Put a lot of time and effort and thought into this. I hope it helps you guys out the way it helps me out to stay motivated about Bitcoin, especially with the price of Bitcoin dropping. It's easy to get discouraged, but I try to take the opposite perspective, that when prices drop, sure, my portfolio went down in value this morning, but guess what? Provides a great buying opportunity, hopefully for all of you guys. You have a wonderful day. God bless. Take care.